reading Sous from Mamushka by Olia Hercules, published in 2015. This past year, my family made friends with a Ukrainian family that recently immigrated to America, and they started bringing some of their home-cooked dishes like honey cake and pierogies whenever our families would get together, and I was blown away with just how good Ukrainian food is. This led me to start researching for a good cookbook to make authentic Ukrainian cuisine myself, which led me to Mamushka. I sent a picture of this stew actually to them and said it was zucchini and potato stew, as that's the English name in the cookbook. And they replied, "Oh, we make a similar dish with green pumpkin," which it turns out they did not know the English word for that is zucchini. So we were actually talking about the same dish, and it turns out that dish is called Sous. So with how flavorful this stew came out, I'd say definitely it's a home run. At least this book has been so far. I plan on making some more videos trying my hand at honey cake and pierogies and many other things. It also has recipes for Ukrainian classics like borscht, and as well as some other dishes from the Caucasus, like not Moldova's not in the Caucasus, but Moldova, Georgia, Armenia, and also Russia. So if you're interested in learning Eastern European cuisine, I would definitely recommend this book to get you started. Here is the setup for our Sous, our Ukrainian stew. We've got freshly sliced zucchini, we've got sour cream, sunflower oil, we've got a tablespoon of tomato puree, we've got crushed garlic, thinly sliced potato. This is beefsteak tomato fresh that has been run through a box grater to give it sort of a rough dice, and also had the skins peeled and removed, so there's no skins in there. We've got thinly sliced onion, we've got flour, and crusty bread, but in this case it is a sourdough baguette, but feel free to use whatever crusty white bread you'd like. So, okay, that's all of the ingredients, and obviously salt and pepper, and next thing we're going to do is go straight to the stove. Okay, we're going to get started here. I've put a few tablespoons of sunflower oil that I'm heating in our pan here. You want a heavy bottomed pan for this. In this case, I'm using my well-seasoned cast iron skillet. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these zucchini slices and we're just going to toss them in the flour so they get nice and coated. And this will have to be done in batches, most likely. And then shake off any excess. And these are just going to go directly in the pan. And if your pan ever seems like it's running out of oil as you fry these, there's no reason not to just go ahead and put a little bit more oil in. And so these are going to pan fry until they're a little browned. And I'm not doing a great job of shaking the flour off, but that's all right because flour is also going to be part of what thickens the stew here. And we have what's called a slotted spatula. If you don't have one of these, they're quite useful. So as these go, we're going to use the slotted spatula to turn these over so they brown on both sides. And once they brown on both sides, we're going to then remove them to our plate, and we're going to do other things in the pan while these are fried. So once these are fried, I will be back and I will show you guys what that looks like. You can see these are starting to brown and caramelize very well. These little ones in the center are probably done. So I'm going to go ahead and take those out. Yeah, they're browned on both sides. And so when they're finished, we're just going to take them out and put them on paper towels so that it absorbs the excess oil. And as these finish, we'll put on new ones. And so I will be back when I'm finished frying all of these zucchini here. All right, we have finished frying our zucchini. You can see it's nice and brown here. And the next thing we're going to do, you see it sort of made an oil and flour roux in here, almost like we're making gumbo or something like that. So before this gets going too long here, we're going to go ahead and put the potatoes in. And we're just going to fry these as well. Make sure that you get them so they're not stuck to each other. Fry these until they caramelize and turn brown. And that's going to take, these are pretty thin, so It's only going to take a couple minutes to do that. And like I said, if at any point your pot gets too dry, please don't hesitate to just add a little more. You don't need to go nuts, but add a little more oil. And as we add vegetables, it's going to cause some juices to leak out into these as well, into these pans that'll eventually start to turn this into a stew and less of just a vegetable fry here. So, okay, I'll be back when the potatoes are fried. All right, the potatoes have a decent brown on them now, so we're going to go ahead and add in our onions. And as much as you can, try to, they'll break up naturally anyway, just because of the structure of an onion, but I'm going to go ahead and add our onions in, and we're also going to go ahead and add that tomato puree at this point. And lower the temperature on your stove down to medium-low at this point. And we're going to let all of this cook together. You'll see the onions will start to release juices also as they separate and they caramelize, but we're going to let these onions caramelize and continue to cook with the potatoes and this tomato and start to release their juices. On medium-low, it'll take somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. When the onions look like they're caramelized is when you're done. And I'm actually, since I've been talking about it, I'm going to add just a little bit more oil to this because it's getting a little dry. And okay, once our onions are, oh man, this is already starting to smell really good. So once our onions are cooked, I will be back to show you guys the next step. All right, you can see we've got this beautiful caramelization going on both the potatoes and the char on the potatoes and the caramelization of the onions here. That's looking good. We're gonna go ahead and put in our crushed garlic now. And that's just gonna be about a minute before we do the next step because garlic cooks quite quickly. Man, it really, when you start, especially when you start cooking with fresh vegetables and really aromatic spices and stuff, you get hit with waves of smells as you cook, as you add each element. And man, it's so satisfying and really makes you hungry and makes you want to eat what you're cooking. Okay, so the garlic is in there now. Now we're basically going to add most of the rest of the ingredients back into the pan. So we can go ahead and put our fried zucchinis back in. Interestingly enough, Italian also sort of does some things. There's some sauces for pasta that are made with where you fry the zucchini first and then you incorporate it into the sauce. Not sure chemically why it works well with zucchini, but it does. Let me get that mixed in here. And now we're going to go ahead and add in our tomato pulp. And that's really going to start to release juices. The tomato releases so much juices whenever you cook with it. You can see it there. It's really going to start to turn this into more of a liquidy stew. So, all right, I'm going to let that marinate for a second, and then I'll be back with you guys. All right, now we're going to turn up the heat enough to where it could cause the liquid to boil. So that's usually medium high on my stove. But we're going to put in about 3/4 of a cup of water, as well as about 6 ounces of sour cream, this is an 8-ounce container, so that's most of it. And we're also gonna, at this point, generously season all this with salt and pepper. And at this stage, once you get your liquid going here, there's no raw meat or anything in this. It's primarily, it'd be vegan if it wasn't for the sour cream. So you may want to try to make this with, if there's a, I'm actually not sure if there's a vegan equivalent of sour cream, then you might want to try making this stew with that. But at this point, we're gonna just sort of stir all this around, incorporate it. And once it's all incorporated, we're going to get it up to a full boil. And once we get it up to a full boil, also start tasting it for salt and pepper content to make sure it's the way that you would, it's the salt level that, mostly salts, but it's the salt level that you would want it to be. And then once we get this up to a boil, we're actually going to turn the heat back down again and just get it to a slow bubbling simmer. And we're going to let that go for about half an hour at that slow simmer, uncovered, because you want this stew to be thicker by the end of the cooking, so that you end up with a nice thick stew. And as it cooks also, you'll notice that the tomatoes turn a darker red, which will also stain the stew a darker red. So, all right. Let's taste this here. That tastes really good. A little bit light on the salt for me, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Not a ton more. But yeah, you can see it's, and you can already see the color change starting to happen too, where it's already starting to turn orange. And as this is cooking for the next 30 minutes, definitely, because it's got sour cream especially and flour in it, you want to stir it from time to time to make sure the bottom doesn't burn. So, okay, I'm going to let you guys go and let this simmer for 30 minutes and turn the heat down to where I know that my stove will do a low simmer, and I'll see you guys at the next step. You can see our stew is continuing to cook and thicken up. I'm about to need to stir it again, but just wanted to add this step in for completeness sake here. Sliced up our bread, and we're going to go ahead and just toast that. I like to use the griddle cast iron so I can put grill marks on the bread because it looks pretty, but toast it however, which way you would like to see it done. And when it's done, that'll be part of our garnish that goes into our stew. All right, we're done here at the 30-minute mark. I just wanted to show you the right texture. It almost kind of comes together like a cheesy sauce after it's lost enough liquid from all that flour and potato and everything else that we put into it. It really comes together into a very chunky, hearty stew. So I'm going to plate this up, and I will see you guys at the finale. Here is our Ukrainian Sous, our zucchini and potato stew. It comes out like a very creamy ratatouille. It's very filling, very rustic. I garnished it with some dill from my garden, which kind of kicks it up to another level, as well as some of that grilled bread that I showed you from the stove. I'm going to dig into this. This is really good, guys. You should try this if you've never had it before. The ingredients are simple and easy to find, and it's something that I guarantee you've never had unless you're from Ukraine or Eastern Europe. So, all right, if you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe, and I will see you at the next one.